This is WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. You are listening to One Human Nation with your host, Sandy Batiste. This program will be talking about race and race relations in your community and nationally. Our goal is to be open, honest, and productive.
Welcome to the One Human Nation Show. I'm your host, Sandy Batiste. Thanks for tuning in. We do have a live interview for this show, and so she's already called in, so I do want to get her connected and looped in here, so give me a couple of minutes, and I'm going to let you listen to some of our wonderful intro music as we get set up for today's show. So welcome back to the One Human Nation Show, and I just want to give a little background, a little setup before our guest today talks about what's happening in Austin. As most of you know, I previously lived in Austin, Texas for like over 30 years, and so it's been rather intense to see what's been happening and get the stories of the bombings and seeing the response from people on Facebook. So I thought it would be a good idea to have a guest that's still living in Austin to share her thoughts. So just a little bit of background. There's been 3 package explosions in residential areas in the city of Austin, and in the Austin area, I would say, because some of these have been, kind of like how Pooler would be to Savannah. And so currently there are 2 people that have died. Anthony Stephen House, a 39-year-old black man, and then a younger teenager, Draylon Mason, 17 years old, has he also died. And then there's a 75-year-old Hispanic lady that's in critical condition, still in the hospital. And I think there's maybe a couple of other people that are still in the hospital with injuries. So I thought it would be good to get some insight from someone that's kind of living through this experience right now. So hold on, and I will connect us with our guest today. So, Soccer, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I don't know if you were listening to that, Soccer, but I did kind of provide a little intro to folks as far as, the deaths that have already occurred. And so I just kind of wanted to jump in, and you and I have been friends for quite a few years.
A lot of years.
let's just leave it at that, a lot of years.
Yes.
And how long have you been in Austin? Because I know you got there after I got there.
Right. I have been in Austin since 1994.
Okay.
And so it's been a few years.
Okay.
And it's amazing what's going on now. We are just basically, I think the city is kind of on edge because we also have a whole lot of visitors in the city right now.
Yes, because it's South by Southwest. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of having the same kind of buzz in Savannah with the St. Patrick's Day parade. So I understand that. And there's already heightened security. And then you have something like this happen. So tell us your thoughts when you heard about the first bombing that killed Anthony Stephen House. I think he's 39 years old.
39 years old,
yeah.
Yes. When I heard about the first bombing, I thought it was an isolated incident. I never once thought, oh, wow, this is going to become a thing. I thought, oh, my goodness, that's horrendous that something like this has happened in our city or, again in our country. And I, said a prayer for the family, and that was it. I didn't think that, a few weeks later we'd end up with the same thing again and then again. It's really has changed the way I look at Amazon Prime or anything.
Right. So when you heard about the second bombing then, which was a couple of weeks later, and actually the second bombing, I think they kind of I think they occurred like the same day, because one was delivered the day before, but they didn't open it till the next day. So when you heard about the next bombings, what were your thoughts then?
When I heard about the second bombing, I thought, oh my goodness, this seems like it's becoming a pattern. This is not a one-off. It seems like someone is targeting people. And when I discovered that both people who were killed were people of color, were black men, I thought, wait a minute, this seems like this could be a hate crime. This could be someone targeting people of color with bombs and packages, because these are not delivered, these packages, from the information that I've gotten, these are not packages that are delivered through the U.S. mail. They're just packages that are left on people's porches
overnight.
And so,
correct. That's what I.
Yeah,
that's,
overnight.
Yeah.
And so people are being told, if you didn't order anything, you don't open anything.
So
if you can't go through your email and check to see if you did order something from, BarnesandNoble.com, and you're expecting a package, don't just open a package.
Right. So what conversation did your household have? Because I know your daughter is 17 now,
yes.
And so what conversation did you have with her, and what's been kind of her response to this?
She she doesn't want packages in the mail anymore. She's thinking, I guess I just have to do what you guys used to do and go to the store. And I said, yeah, go figure. But this is changing the way people think about packages, and changing the way that we have become accustomed to getting home from work and there being a brown package, a box, or USPS, red, white, and blue box on your porch because you ordered some staple that you need, or a book or something like that. And it's 100% commonplace to see that all throughout the year, not just during Christmas time. And so this has really changed the way that we think about that and talk about it, and we're not ordering stuff.
Yeah, so
we're going to the grocery store and going to Target to get paper towels and Dove washing detergent and all kinds of things. We're not going on Amazon. This is going to definitely affect, I'm sure, their bottom line.
Right. So let me ask you, in talking to your friends in Austin, has there been a different response based on whether the person is African American or white? Because, this is all about the One Human Nation show, and how we look at things so that we can have safe, honest, and open conversation. So how has that conversation been going in Austin?
I've had my friends who were Caucasian call me and say, don't open any boxes, soccer. I've had people call me from California, people call me from New York, Chicago, Houston, my brother calling me from Houston going, if you've ordered something, then you might not want to order anything else. I mean, everybody calling me to say, are you safe? Are you okay? Do you have any boxes?
But those are people that are out of Austin. I was more curious about the buzz in Austin, because
the buzz, right.
Yeah, because in Austin, I lived there for over 30 years. So there is an underlying racism in Austin that's not readily available. And I think when we talked before, or just, yesterday, and I asked you to come on the show, you kind of reference Austin and its liberal.
Austin, our PR says that Austin is like the San Francisco of Texas, that Austin is very liberal, but it's very easy to be liberal when Austin's mostly white. It's very easy to be liberal when you're a white person in Austin. And so even the media has has not really called it what it is, which is a hate crime bombing. These are bombings targeted at people who are people of color. A Hispanic woman, 75 years old, a 17-year-old black man, and a 39-year-old black man. These are all people of color, and this is what it is. And the first time, the police and nobody said anything about color. The second time, then they said, well, it's an isolated, could be. But the third time, when the Hispanic lady who's in the hospital, they are now saying it's hard not to say. And I heard this on the news last night. The interim police chief guy said it's hard not to say that this isn't race related.
Right.
He said it's hard not to say it, and it's the truth, because of all the millions of people who live in Austin, Texas, and also in those areas as well, to choose people who were people of color, because black people make up less than 10% of people in the city of Austin. This had to be something that was targeted. It would have been a lot easier to find a Caucasian person to send that bomb to than they had to search out a black person, or they had to do some research in order to find that person. It's not just something that just happened randomly.
Yeah, and so I did a little research through what I could find on the internet, and the only time that I remember seeing it on the national news, it was just kind of like a blip in the radar. And of course, a lot of the buzz is with the the walkout from the youth in school, and that is just kind of everywhere in the news yesterday. But I really had to dig for what was going on in Austin, and I saw that the governor there posted that there was going to be a $15,000 reward. And APD, I will get this in, that the Austin Police Department did come back with a $50,000 reward per their local Fox 7 affiliate station. So, and it appears now, and I understand for security purposes, we can't expect the agencies that are all involved just to be blasting everything out there. But it does appear that the FBI and the ATF are now involved in the investigation. And I did see something through one of the black news outlets where there was a quote from the NAACP president there, saying, his comment was, it's very hard for me to believe in coincidence. And so I think that was definitely my reaction when I heard about it, because I was already ready to leave out of Austin anyway, and so but it doesn't mean that this could not happen anywhere in the United States of America.
That's correct.
I'm interested, though, in how Austin is responding, because it is such a city of whiteness. And it's also the capital of Texas, and so it's kind of got that same tourist appeal with all of the festivals. So that was the other thing that I was wondering. They're
really covering it up, because South by Southwest is here now, and this is a humongous moneymaker. Millions, if not billions, of dollars are pumped into the local economy with South by. You have national and international stars in the city, all over the city, and they do not want anybody attending South by to even feel like they could be in danger, because that could endanger the festival itself. So it has. If you're watching the news, it's spoken about on the news, but who's going to watch the news when they're going to a South by Festival? Nobody. They're going to the movies.
Right.
They're not looking at local news to talk to find out what's happening.
Right. So, in talking to some of the other African Americans there in Austin, Soccer, what's their what's their take on it? I mean, how do they feel about it? Because I'm kind of looking through the lens of what the comments are coming through on Facebook of people that I'm still friends with there. But what's been the conversation with some of the other African Americans in the Austin area?
The conversations have been be safe. This is ridiculous. It is a hate crime. It's something that we know to be a hate crime. It doesn't happen 3 times to 3 people of color and not be a hate crime, and that the APD and everybody else needs to call it exactly what it is. And don't open any package that you didn't order.
Yeah.
Don't open anything. I mean,
so have you had
my
any?
husband.
I'm sorry.
My husband got a package. Yeah, my husband got a package the day that the second and third bombings occurred, and it was a USPS box. And I called him and I said, "Listen, there's a box. It is on the porch. It will stay on the porch. I will not bother it. It is from and I used my phone to to look at the label." He said, "Oh yeah, that's my friend. He said he was going to send me something." I said, "Okay."
So
I'll pick it up, but it's really sad. That people are losing their lives. They're just people living their lives, and somebody is targeting them.
So
this is a big deal.
Yeah. So the other question I'm still trying to figure out is what's been the response from your white friends? Be
careful.
That's basically it. I mean, do they and so we do the One Human Race initiative in Austin, but do they acknowledge that it's racist, or they just kind of
yes?
Okay, because that would be
all the people who are part of my life are
okay.
They know. I mean, we call a spade, and we don't hold any punches. We call it what it is. We call it out wherever we see it. Or, you're not, you have to be real if you're going to be my friend. And so they're saying, don't soccer. This is absolutely 100% based on, it's a hate crime, and it's targeted at people of color. So please be careful out there. Do not open any boxes. I cannot believe that this is happening. Please be careful. Yeah, they are, but the media is being really, really strategic,
right,
and not saying it. Mm-hmm.
Right. So do you think this will, and of course this is your opinion, but that's what we can do on the One Human Nation show, because it's the safe place that we can have an honest and open conversation. Do you think this will change some of the dynamics in Austin, which has kind of been in denial, and I don't know how it can be in denial that it has a problem with racism, because there was an African American, report that was done on the quality of life. I think that was like 2005.
Quality of life initiative.
Yeah, and there was no actually funding put into that to really give it any teeth based on what came back in the report. Do you think this will have some influence in motivating the city to, really put some dollars into what needs to be done to, really be more multicultural than what it is?
I hope that it does. But I am a realist, and I see, being in real estate, people only think about profits, and they're not, and I see it all the time when all of these different projects are permitted and built and areas, and there's no room for affordable housing, or there was supposed to be affordable housing, and somehow it got left out, and I'm going, this is not acceptable.
Right.
So we talk a good game, but I've yet to see it where the rub, actually see anything come to fruition, because it's real easy to do, but we seem to not do it. And so I'm thinking that this would just be another thing, just like the Quality of Life Initiative, just like the affordable housing bonds and all of that. I'll keep fighting. I'll keep bringing it to the forefront, and I'll be, a little old lady and 92 years old when it actually happens. I'm sorry to say it like that. It sounds so cynical because I'm an optimist at heart, but this just really makes me so sad that we're dealing with this and that the city is hesitant to call it what it is.
Yeah.
And even to put it all over the national news. If this were someone else or anybody else other than people of color, everybody in the United States would know about it because it would be on CNN and it would be being people, Good Morning America. They'd have everybody flown out to New York and different places to have an interview, and none of this is happening.
Right. Well, Soccer, I know, I appreciate you taking the time out to call in because I know you're multitasking and do multiple things there in Austin as well as around the state as well as around nationally because you're very involved with the, with the Realtor Association and what goes on at the national level as well as the state level. So I do want to be conscious of your time. And I think was there anything else you wanted to add as part of the wrap up on, what you're feeling or what's going on in Austin, or have we pretty much covered everything that you would like to share?
Yeah, we've covered everything. I would just ask for people to pray for my city and pray for my state.
Okay. Well, Soccer, thank you so much. And I'll add to what everyone else is saying to you, and that is to be safe out there. Okay?
Okay. I will be.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So we were listening to a good friend of mine that lives in Austin, Texas, sharing her thoughts about what's going on in that city. And for those of you that have listened to the show and know me, I was very happy to move back home to Savannah, Georgia, just because, not that we don't have racism here, but the dynamics are just totally different. Mainly, I think in large part because the population here is 51%, I think was the last number I saw, African American. There is a historical symbiotic relationship between whites and blacks in Savannah that just does not exist in Austin. So the dynamics are still different. Yes, there's still a problem with systemic racism in Savannah, but it's just, unless you've lived in Austin, Texas, it's just kind of hard to explain the difference. And I just talked to somebody last week that just came back from visiting Austin, and it's a white person, and she was like, I had so much fun. It's a great city. And, of course, I have no qualms about saying to people, yeah, it's a great city to visit, and it's a great city to live in, especially if you're white. And I don't feel that way about Savannah, but I could be biased because this is home for me. I was born and raised here, so it's totally a different feeling. I love being back in Savannah, but that doesn't mean we don't have some work to do. So we're at the point that we need to take a break and listen to some announcements. And on the second half of the show, we're going to get into why there's such distrust in the African American community of what happens with our different government agencies based on information that I found. I just love YouTube. I found some a show that had interviewed an African American FBI informant from the 60s, and he was sharing insight into things that I've always heard about. But that was a little bit before, I was like born, I was too young to really grasp all of it. So I thought it would be good to get some clarity on the distrust issue because, it's 2018 and we're still dealing with some generational issues that it's not going to be possible for us to just get past it unless we look at the truth of our history, and I mean our history, and go through a healing process and reconcile with that history. So let's get some of our underwriting announcements done, and we'll be back and continue with the One Human Nation show.
This portion of WRUU LP Savannah Soundings programming is made possible by a grant from Brighter Day Natural Foods, offering produce, vitamins, and supplements, and a deli and juice bar. Brighter Day is located at 1102 Bull Street at the south end of Forsyth Park. More information available at 912-236-4703 or brighterdayfoods.com.
WRUU listeners like you crave exploration and discovery. That's how we can offer your business or organization a unique way to separate your name from the clutter inherent in commercial radio advertising. Underwriting on non-commercial WRUU will make your name stand out because we allow only a limited number of sponsorships per hour, and your message will be reaching listeners who are actively engaged in programs that demand their attention. Let our team build a customized plan to meet your marketing goals by linking your name to our unique music and talk programs. For more information, email underwriting@wruu.org.
WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul.
Welcome back to the One Human Nation show, and we're going to be listening to some information, kind of to take a look at the history of why there is this underlying distrust that exists with people of color, specifically African Americans in our country, and it does have a very strong historical base that I think we need to take a look at, especially as we continue to live in times now in 2018 that more and more things seem to be happening that are race related, and even though there's a certain denial from people that are not quite awake to that yet, I think more and more people are awake to it. But I think it's a matter of looking back at some of the historical history. So let's get started with just getting some background from this recording that I found on the internet.
The name of the informant that we interviewed is Dothart Perry, also known as Ed Riggs, also known as Bill Perry, also known as Othello. He worked for the FBI as an informer who infiltrated various black organizations during the 1960s. Ours is the only full-face on-camera interview that he has conducted thus far. Now, we interviewed him on two separate occasions, so for purposes of continuity, we've edited this piece, going from one interview to another according to subject areas. We began with his account of how he was recruited by the FBI.
I was a student at Sacramento City College and Sacramento State College. I was stopped in the parking lot one day by a special agent by the name of Brent. Told me a little bit about that he knew that I had worked in military intelligence and how would I like to work for him. And also that I knew certain people in the so-called black radical fringe that they would be very interested in finding different information out about. I told him that my term for military intelligence had been very short-lived, that I was not interested in them and I wasn't interested in him either.
By now this must have been 1968-ish.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The following month, I was going to school on a federal grant and also a VA loan check. My check didn't come down, either one. I had bought a oscilloscope for a television communications class that I was taking from a person that I didn't even know. He just had the oscilloscope for sale and it was very cheap, so I bought it. Since my checks hadn't came down, being a student and I was taking like close to, I think, about 23 units, something like that. It was a very heavy course load. I couldn't work and go to school at the same time. So I decided I would take the oscilloscope down to the pawn shop, pawn it, and use that money until my checks came. I went down, I pawned the oscilloscope. As I came out, I got busted. Possession of stolen property. It seems that someone had broken into Sacramento City College and had stolen the oscilloscope along with quite a few other things.
So what happened?
Taken to court, due to the, told me that I should be interested because they could help me with a problem that I had. And I told him I didn't have any problems that I knew of. He said, oh, yes, you remember the possession of stolen? I said, yeah, well, that's summary probation, man. I just write a letter in every month. He said, oh, no, that's not summary probation. It turned out it's a felony probation for 3 years, which means you have to report in every week.
To bring it down to a nutshell, what happened?
What happened was that as far as they were concerned, it was felony probation now. And if when you jump probation, that means they can put you in for the rest of the term of the probation, which came through about 2 years and 10 months.
And so they threatened you with that?
Yes, they did.
Why didn't you stand up to that?
I called the probation office in Sacramento first. They told me a warrant was out for my arrest and that I was going to jail.
Did you have any particular fear of jail?
Yes. I don't like to be shut in. I have a very, very dark fear of being shut up anywhere.
How would they have known this?
The only way they could have known that is from my psychological profile when I went into military intelligence, which they take on all people that work in military intelligence.
So you bent and you decided to go to work for them?
Yes.
If you just tuned in, you're listening to the One Human Nation show, and we're listening to some historical information from a black FBI informant during the time period of the 60s to kind of give us a reference for some of the underlying issues that we still have to deal with in this country today when it comes to the differences of how black and brown people are treated, that especially as we start listening to more of the recruitment strategies. I do want to point out to you that I have posted this entire video at the One Human Nation website. That's onehumannation.info, and this is show 44. So if you go there to the resource page, show 44, you'll see the clip, the video that's posted there, and it's about an hour long. So we're not listening to all of that. I'm just taking some key points to try to build a framework of why we're in this place that we are today. So let's continue to take a listen on some of the recruitment strategies.
How would you say that most of those who are doing the same thing that you did have gotten into that behavior? The same way you did, they were coerced?
Coerced, pressure. Some can take it for, I think some might do it for the pay, for the feeling of power. It's a natural syndrome for a powerless person giving a pedestal where he can direct, or he can say, well, this man goes to jail or this man stays free. They get a feeling of security from it.
For the FBI, did you get an indoctrination or did you just start cold?
No, I got an indoctrination. It started off with camera surveillance, camera surveillance, electronic techniques of surveillance, shadowing, the obtaining of let's say letters, empty envelopes, instructions on how to go to somebody's garbage containers and pick out useful items. You'd be surprised at the things that they take out of a garbage can, by the way. I mean, anywhere from the leftover food from breakfast, just to know what this guy eats for breakfast, you know. When they become interested in a person or a group of people. They try to find out as much as they possibly can, psychologically and academically and social-wise. Who do they run with? Do they go to certain nightclubs? Does this one have a sex hang-up? Is the man impudent? You know, anything that can be used later on.
How long was this indoctrination process?
It lasts anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. What is the most sophisticated equipment that you use as far as eavesdropping is concerned?
And so, you know, what stands out to me in this is I try to look through things through the lens of race reconciliation. I can't help but to go back to the book written by Dr. Joy DeGruy, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and this individual that was recruited. They pretty much knew what his weak points, were, just because of him, his background information. But, you know, I think it's interesting that one of his fears was being closed and shut in. And if you read through Dr. Joy DeGruy's book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, that really gets into the generational impact of being enslaved. I mean, what's more traumatizing than to be on a slave ship where you're closed in and immobile, for for extended period of time? And if we know now what we know about post-traumatic distress disorder, how could that not be passed on through your gene cycle, through your DNA? That some of the things that we have a fear about, I'm not even sure we realize why we have a fear about it. I know some African Americans are deathly afraid of dogs, and that's because dogs were used to hunt down, slaves. Some are deathly afraid of water in swimming because they didn't know how to swim and they would drown. Now, some of them voluntarily drowned as opposed to being enslaved, but that's a whole nother story. So when we start looking at through the lens of race reconciliation and the impact that it has on us today, we just can't have blinders on and think, oh, well, that happened then, and there's not an impact now. So let's continue to take a listen to some continued information from this Black informant that was recruited by the FBI in the 60s.
In your experience, did you ever see the FBI try to sway newspaper or media news?
Oh, hey, let me run this down to you. LA Times, man. I went over there and picked up press passes from certain people over there. Let me see. Some people that work for NBC.
TV?
Yes, in Los Angeles. Used to get press passes to the Bureau and stuff. Fact is, we used to get some camera equipment from there.
So a lot of this news film was probably turned over to the FBI.
Oh, sure.
Well, was definitely turned over.
Oh, hey, they had a lot of reporters, and it was that old game of one hand washes the other. Usually, an agent would prefer to meet the reporter on a one-on-one basis. You understand what I mean? Build a rapport with him. Go out to the press club, buy him a few drinks. Take him out to Hollywood Park. For the races. That kind of thing. Say, hey, Jim, your paper's covering such and such, or your TV station's covering such and such. And, yeah, I just like a little bit more information than I've been getting. I need it, It would kind of help me, you know what I mean? A personal favor. And if you do something for me, maybe I can do something for you, in the future. Like, when we're about to break a case, you'll be the first to know. That kind of thing.
What kind of work did you end up doing as an undercover agent? Were you doing espionage work or informant work?
Informant work, and also what you would call illegal entries, selling of weapons, selling of explosives, arson.
You would sell weapons and explosives to these so-called radical groups that you were joining?
Yes.
How does the FBI coordinate this information? You were one of a number of agents who were doing this. How did they correlate and coordinate this flow of information?
So for the sake of time, I can't believe how quickly time goes on. There's some more information that I do want to have you listen to. But remember, the entire video is actually posted at the One Human Nation website, onehumannation.info. So let's continue to listen. And there's a couple of more information that I would like to share with you, because it definitely impacts the dynamics that we experience in 2018.
The thing that really irritates me about this whole situation is that, of course, I know what I've done. You know, I'm well aware of that. I don't need to be reminded of it. But I think that black people in general need to be reminded of it, because it's happening every day, and it's happening in every city in this country. I doubt that there's a place between Alaska and California that is not happening to black people. But the thing that gets me is that black people are sitting back and they're saying, yeah, well, get him. Yeah, you can get me. Big deal. You haven't hurt them one iota. Fact is, you did them a favor, if you really want to get down to it. You did them an immense favor, because you killed the cat that was pulling your coattail, and that's all they want anyway. You know, the thing is dealing directly with them. Use your lawmakers, your so-called prestigious community leaders to go out there and start questioning these people, letting them know that they're not going to allow this type of situation to happen anymore.
Are you saying then that too many black folks today are apathetic and laying back in the cup, that you don't see enough resentment to what has gone down?
Definitely, I'm saying that. If I was part of the madness, and it makes me ill, and it makes me angry, and I can go out here and do what I'm doing now, and these are the people that it was being done to, and they don't even give a damn, then hey man, what's happening? You know, you tell me, you let me know. As far
You're listening to the One Human Nation show, and we're listening to some of the clips from an interview with an African-American FBI spy from the 60s. And what's interesting about this for me is when I really started waking up to just how things were shaped and formed in this country. And I love this country. To me, it's still the best place to be. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. But we have issues. We have issues that we need to face, and they're painful issues. But when I was waking up and I started attending some meetings just to be more involved on the activist side and what was going on, and I remember attending a meeting that was hosted by a civil rights group, and I knew the person that was facilitating the meeting. And after it was over, I pulled him aside and I said, I just didn't feel like there was just enough content, of what's the action plan? What are we going to be actually doing? And I can't remember what it was in reference to what had happened this time. I can't, that was in 2014, I think, 2015. And so it was something that had happened, and I was just really waking up with kind of like, this is insane. What are we doing about this in this community as African Americans? And I remember this person looked at me, and it's kind of was this look like, because this is a person that had been in the trenches for over 20 years in Austin. And he looked at me and he said, Sandy, we realize when we do these meetings that there are people here that don't have good intentions for us, that there are people here to just find out what we're doing so that they can go back and tell the others, that, and he didn't even go into details, but he said it in a way, and it was face to face. It was that eye contact. and it was a person I had, other conversations about. They probably had gotten very frustrated with me on some of those conversations because I wasn't really awake. But that was my moment of, oh, okay. And if you listen to the show that features some of the talks from Malcolm X, I think that was show 40. I'm not sure. You'd have to go to the onehumannation.info website to kind of scroll through that. He referenced that. I mean, when he would greet everybody in his speech, he said, it's good to see my friends and family and enemies here. And he knew. He said, let's not kid ourselves that the reason why this room is packed, that there are people here that are here just to find out what is happening and what we're doing, just so they can report back. And so it's not just a figment of the imagination. And so there are some, I think there's some African Americans, it's again this generational of being so oppressed, so beat down for so long. There is this apathy that we have to shake ourselves out of and really get ourselves rejuvenated. And I'm hoping that with the recent developments and the kids that are getting more engaged, even though it's on a different topic of gun violence, I'm hoping it's a ripple effect. Because this is their awakening, and they may not be as aware at this time of the race and the racism issue in this country, but they're awake, to the issues that are impacting them. And my hope is that over a period of time, they really, engage in a way and bring new energy to what we need to work through in this country to really go through a reconciliation process so we can even be better than what we are now, because we know that we have issues, social justice issues that are not being addressed and surely not being addressed on the level that we need for them to be addressed. So my hope is that we continue to build a critical mass of people that are awake. So as you listen to this show, there's a podcast now. Please share it with others, your friends, people that are on this journey, or maybe some that are not. I'll leave it up to your discretion on that. And as we wrap up for today's show, keep in mind that the viewpoints expressed in the preceding program were not necessarily those of WRUU, its license holder, or its staff. Thank you for listening, and I'm still digesting things from what's happening in Austin. So I'm encouraging everybody to be safe and to be aware and awake of what's going on in your world, and to get involved. And I know that sounds like, well, Sandy, you're telling me to get involved, but you're telling me also to be safe. There's a way to be involved and to be safe. So I'll let you figure that out. There was one more clip that I wanted to play for you, but we are out of time for today. And so next up is Sound Limit. And I think Troy is going to be here. I'm not sure if there's a sub for him. Yeah, so his hand was waving like, yes, it's me. So Sound Limit up, coming up next with Troy Stoner. Thanks for listening, and I'll be talking to you next week.